It's a great pleasure now to introduce our next speakers, and that's Catrin and Mirain, who are going to give a presentation on what are the obstacles and success stories of intergenerational work. Thank you.
Helo, bore da, a byddwch chi angen defnyddio'r system.
Good morning, and if you could put the translation on. I hope you can all hear me through the translation, yes? Perhaps you could put it in the chat for Catrin to see. I'm still talking.
Yep,
yes, great, thank you.
Dr. Catrin Hedd.
Well, I'm Dr. Catrin Hedd Jones, and I'm delighted to be able to co-present with Mirain Llwyd Roberts today our work in the field of intergenerational work. So our aim is to share some information with you that will show the work that we've done over the years, bringing the generations together. I'm a lecturer in the Sciences School in Bangor University. Mirain? I'm Mirain, and I'm an intergenerational project for Gwynedd Council. There's a long tradition in Bangor University and in Wales indeed about bringing the generations together. But here are some of the highlights from the point of view of the work that's already taken place in Bangor University before we move on to the more recent work. Professor Jill Windle and Sam Gregory wrote on the work called Lost in Arts that was done in Denbighshire and that still continues. And this was work where people living with dementia came in to centres in the community to look at art and to discuss the works of art that they were seeing. And then they were having a chance to do something themselves weekly. But what happened as part of this scheme is that local primary school children were taught about dementia. And then after they had a better awareness from school, they joined the older people and created a piece of work together with them. And this is a very important part of challenging the stigma of people living with dementia in our communities. And children enjoyed the ability to be creative. Some of the projects that took place, the Pontio Art Centre worked with people in the local care home to do a project called Lost Corners with Gwawr Ifan from the School of Music, where young people following a music course in Coleg Menai at the time would go and perform with people and play music to them. And there are lovely clips on the internet. And the way music could touch people, older people, and the fact that the young people also benefited greatly from the opportunity to talk and enjoy music with people. Then in the bottom picture, we've got a clip of a project called Voices, where we had children studying for GCSE in health and social care would go for weekly chats with older people. And they learnt a lot about their characters and the history from the conversations. And these conversations were then turned into performances in Pontio. So there's quite a widespread history of intergenerational work. In 2016, Professor Bob Woods and Dr. Nia Williams from the School of Education and myself started talking with a TV company that was interested in seeing what would happen if we were to bring the generations that need daycare in the day centres and the youngsters in nurseries together in the same building to spend time together. And this led to a series called Hen Blant Bach. And our aim was to bring people together over 3 days, very short space of time, but with the benefit that the television company could film every corner and we could watch what was happening. What we thought was important, the first day, they had never seen each other before. So we were introducing them to each other in a group, the children coming into the day centre to be with the older people. Then the second day, we identified individuals who could benefit from working one-to-one. And we thought maybe they were similar in characters. And this was an important step in the process of creating the friendship. And by the third day, it was a celebration of the time that they had had together. And if you watched the series on TV, Hen Blant Bach, I'm sure you saw that there was definitely a mood of celebration. But after a few years of working on this series, the company took the filming into a centre where people were living with dementia. It was a big step for them because they didn't know the people and maybe had some prejudices, really, didn't know if it was the right thing to do. But we definitely saw really special results from that series. I've put a link in the chat for you to see clips. So we gathered some information. Very lucky to have a researcher, Llwyd Heimer, through the CARE scheme, to ask the older people and the children who are part of the series, older people across 4 sites in Wales that were shown on the series. And as you can see, their ages were between 63 and 99. And we asked what was their experience over the 3 days, and also used some questionnaires as well to see what the effect was in terms of well-being. And we saw that even in 3 days, there was a difference. The results were very positive. These are some of the comments that were made. Children seeing older people, they're not prejudiced, the children are innocent. The older people really looking forward, best day they'd had in the day centre, some of them said. And lots of comments that just showed the potential of this to challenge the signal we've got in society. So watching children and older people together, and we think they haven't got anything contribute, but it's just not true. Also, we asked the parents of the children. The children were having 3 days with the older people they hadn't met before, and then going home after the day, after the usual school day, nursery day, parents asking what it was like. Parents didn't see the television programs when they were doing this. And it's important to realize that, but they are so positive, and they really felt that their children had benefited from the experience of being with people that maybe they don't have time to be with. For me personally, it was the unexpected stars that stood out, not the people who were really wanted to take part or wanted to spend time with children because they couldn't see their families, just the people who maybe tended to be ignored a little bit by the people around them. A gentleman here who had side effects of stroke, but his communication skills were excellent because he could have fun and was a favorite with the children. And then the gentleman on the right, so shy at the beginning and so nervous, but so lovely. And although he lacked confidence at the beginning of the process, we could see over 3 days how much he benefited, and the children as well. So this being so positive, the question was, why doesn't this happen everywhere? So fortunately, we moved the research forward with Mirain's work, and I hand over to Mirain now to explain what she's discovered. Thank you. So back in 2018, I was lucky enough to have an opportunity to work on research jointly with CES, Bangor University and Gwynedd Council. And this was excellent because a local authority had shown the way forward, I think, in Wales, and the importance of offering intergenerational opportunities. And they did this by funding a full-time post through ICF money. And the opportunity I have had during the research has been great. Attending conferences in Scotland, for example, and in these 2 pictures, a conference in Portland in the USA. it just shows that it's a chance to learn more from good practice overseas, but also we in Wales can offer a lot to other people as well from our own experiences. In my research, there were 3 stages: a scoping review, Survey Monkey through Wales, and then concentrated on 4 case studies. We identified 714 papers before realizing that only 9 of them actually looked at the barriers to intergenerational work. Then we looked at the questionnaires and learned about people in Wales, the ones taking part in schemes, but more importantly, those that weren't taking part, so that we could learn about why more projects weren't being offered across the country. And then we concentrated on 4 case studies from primary schools to further education colleges, and with different housing needs as well. So the 2 photos on the left are from a further education college project, where individuals from the community would come into the college and would have a chance to talk and to have lunch together with the students. And I think the top picture really tells you a lot about how much pleasure you can have from projects like this, and the chance for people of all ages to share experiences and get to know each other. I concentrated on the themes for my research. I'm not going to go into detail on every theme because there were a lot, but the main ones that came out of the review were these. It showed what comes up during projects and what's either a challenge during a project or stops people from starting in the first place. We also had themes coming out of the Survey Monkey and also the case studies. As I said, I can't talk about each one individually, but I'll show you now how these themes can feed into a model that we've been working on to develop intergenerational work. Looking at each theme, we've understood that we need 3 different levels of work here in order to fit into intergenerational projects that work. At a personal level, people need to have some understanding or just a sort of social conscience in a way that they want to do this work and want to make the links. Then within communities, tradition plays an essential part, but also the importance of getting that individual who brings everyone together, or the group or the people taking part can organize it and make sure that everything is in place. But even more important, on the national level and policies. And I think that since November 2020, the first cross-party group on intergenerational work has been set up. And this is the only group through Britain, and it's been set up in Wales, which shows that we are ready to do more at this level nationally, and possibly doing it through inspiring people, but also offering solutions and showing what the barriers are. We can do this through several different platforms. We already know the influence that the TV program Hen Blant Bach had, and showing people the real pleasure that comes from this type of work. But also, we're in a very exciting time in Wales, with a new curriculum for Wales coming in soon, and intergenerational work is a natural part of that curriculum, fits into several aspects of it. So hopefully, over the next few months and years, we will be able to feed into the curriculum and also provides more experiences between the generations for people out there. But of course, all this took place before the lockdown. So that changed everything. During the lockdown, we had to adapt like everyone. It wasn't a time where we could bring people together. We couldn't run the projects that we used to be running. Back in 2019, the Welsh Government published a report on mechanisms for intergenerational contact. And this is an adaptation of Kaplan's work in 2004, showing there are different types of intergenerational work. And during the lockdown period, we had to adapt and concentrate more on level 1, really, which is raising awareness and reducing stigma and intergeneration work from afar. But hopefully we can go back to levels 4, 5, 6 when the time is right. Maybe not this year, but I'm sure that it will happen again, like we've been doing before, when the time is right. But for now, we can still make those connections. So in Gwynedd Council, we have adapted like everyone. And we did this by having projects from remote and supporting people in the best way we can. We came to understand that a lot of the people we wanted to work with possibly didn't want to go online. So rather than just doing things online every time, we set up pen pal scheme. Now we've got over 100 pairs writing to each other on the pen pal scheme, and the response has been excellent. I'll show you a video about Llwyd and Becca in a minute after this presentation for you to see what difference just one pen pal person can do. We organised Christmas concerts online for care homes. We worked with several partners and provided over 100 Christmas boxes made by children and young people for older people. We also concentrated on networking events that Catrin will talk about in a minute. And we also worked on resources for teachers so that they can start the conversation with children about bridging the generations. And also, they've got some tasks or options of things they can still do even now. We've also got friendship benches being placed across the county. We've got 6 benches so far in different places in Gwynedd by the end of April, and we've got 3 or 4 other benches in the pipeline before the end of the summer. And these benches would be places where somebody who's maybe a little bit lonely can sit as an invitation when the time is right. Again, we wouldn't be encouraging it now. And also we're launching a gardening scheme as well in the spring, where children and young people will sow seeds, and hopefully they'll be able to offer them to people living on their own, but it'll start a conversation when they see each other next, and they can talk about the flowers. So just to close then and summarise what we've been doing to try and raise that awareness across Wales, to help the interest that has come up recently. We had a conference in Bangor in 2019 to share good practice with speakers from Wales, England, Scotland. This year we had to go online, and there's a network now of practitioners, people who are interested from Wales and beyond, and they've attracted a lot of people. Even if they don't do any intergenerational work, they're welcome to come and learn from other people. So you can see there's definite interest there. As Mirain said, the Welsh Government is hoping to show more interest because this feeds into the strategy for tackling isolation and helping older people and the new curriculum for Wales. There was a conference across Wales to discuss the next steps. There was a campaign for the second year this term where the 4 nations did an intergenerational week to share information. And as some of you know, we're now in the decade of healthy aging, a scheme from the United Nations. So this is a chance for us to reflect, not just at home, but at a worldwide level, because intergenerational work is one of the ways to challenge the stigma that exists between ages and to appreciate how much people have to offer to their communities. It's not just something where children go and entertain older people. It's a partnership, as you've seen, I hope. So thank you very much. We've had a chance just to give you a quick flavour of the activity that's going on. Thank you to Gwynedd Council for funding the only officer for intergenerational work in Wales. And hopefully this will inspire more people so that we can move the work forward. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much for your presentation.